Okay, zoning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for August 8th, 2023. Tonight we have a work session. We don't have any hearings this evening. And I will start off. We do have one administrative application. I'll read that into the record. It's the applicant is 320 Old Montauk Highway, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-88-1-26.4, and that's to demolish an existing residence and swimming pool, construct a 3,406 square foot one-story residence with 2,352 square foot of finished basement, 709 square foot of decking, a 1,200 square foot swimming pool, 500 square foot of patio, and to relocate, renovate an existing 1,034 square foot guest house with 204 square feet deck, existing 329 square foot of pool house with new 340 square foot porch. Members, if you remember, we brought this up last weekend. We tabled it so we can have an opportunity to take a look at it. So with that, Tyler, you want to give us another quick?
Sure, yeah. So we talked about it last week. This is a redevelopment of a parcel. There's a lot of existing nonconformities on the property. They're going to be removing the existing nonconforming house. Just to remind you, this is Old Montauk Highway, so it's measured from the toe of the bluff here rather than the crest. So the existing house, which is located roughly where the pool is proposed to be located, will be removed, relocated further away from the toe to a conforming location. They're going to be removing a tennis court and revegetating the northeast side of the lot, relocating a guest house and relocating a pool house. So they're moving some things around. The proposal is for, actually I have it here. They also had an administrative approval back in 2020, which has shifted some numbers around. So the clearing back in 2020 was proposed to remain at roughly 51,000. They're proposing to reduce that down to below 49,000. Lot coverage is proposed to remain roughly the same. Total lot coverage will increase very slightly. The GFA of the house approved in 2020 was 5,400 square foot two-story residence. This is a 3,400 square foot one-story residence, probably partially two stories, I think, because the basement is counted as a story in some places, it looks like. The decking was drastically reduced from 2,800 square feet down to 709 square feet. Pool remains the same size. The house has increased its setbacks, the proposed setbacks, from 141 feet to 164 feet from the toe. So we were comfortable moving forward administratively, since it's fairly similar, if not slightly better maybe than the 2020 application.
Any questions?
No, I mean, having an opportunity to look at it, I think I thought it was more than just a fairly, you said it's fairly similar. I thought it was a bigger improvement than that.
No, the house seems like
The house was a big drop.
Quite a bit drop.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the house was two stories in the last app. This is the last one. So it was a two-story, smaller footprint, but two stories.
Right.
But this one I think is still partially, because there's some weird topography in the middle there. So I think it's partially two stories. So yeah, I would say, they're roughly the same idea. The coverage is roughly the same. So, yeah.
And the clearing coverage goes down 2,000 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. All right.
All right, do we have a motion?
Can I just ask one quick question? The areas that you have marked in green, are they scenic easements now?
No, that's just areas proposed to be either revegetated or will remain vegetated.
Mhm. Is there a scenic
that
easement
right?
on the property?
I don't believe so. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't appear that there is. The crest of the bluff is up here. Obviously, we're not taking setbacks from that in this case, but those are the existing conditions. Toes down, the toe of the bluff is down here. Setback pretty far.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay, motion?
I'll make a motion. Then in the application of 320 Old Montauk Highway, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-088-01-26.4, I'd like to make a motion to allow this application to proceed administratively.
Second. Concur.
I
Concur.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ZBA, just one quick moment. I misspoke just for the record. The phone lines will remain off for the work session. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you. We now move into our post-hearing decisions. We have Drew Damon at 20 Post Street in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-138-2-12.1. And that's to allow a swimming pool to remain 23.7 feet from the side yard lot line where 30 feet is required. This reduces the required setback to 21%. This, I believe, was a variance without a hearing. Is that correct, Tyler?
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
you want to give us a quick brief on it?
Sure. So yeah, this is a property that has two front yards. It's on both Post Street and Mulford Avenue. I believe there was a building permit issued with this swimming pool in a conforming location. It needs to meet 30-foot front yard setbacks. It was relocated. I don't know how. During construction, it seems like. So it meets a 23.7-foot setback rather than that 30-foot front yard setback. There's a fairly significant amount of vegetation along the road here. So it was pretty straightforward variance application.
And this went through the process and there was no objections?
Public
to it?
comments that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Are we okay, board?
I am.
I'm okay.
Therefore, I make a motion with Drew Damon, 20 Post Street, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-138-2-12.1, to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
Concur.
As written?
Or
It's not written.
It's not written yet.
It's not
maybe
written
not
yet.
written to approve it as, to approve the,
As
We're actually
proposed.
approving the application
sorry,
as
yes, that's correct.
proposed.
Second it again.
I
Concur.
concur again. I concur again.
We next move to 404 Old Montauk Highway. At 404 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-22-1-4. The size and location is 2.8 acres at 404 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk. The description is to construct a 3,591 square foot two-story residence with basement and 891 square foot of porches, two second-story decking, a sanitary system, and driveway on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands and coastal buffers and beaches. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the town code and variances from 255-430, minimum wetland setbacks, 255-1110, table of dimensional regulations, 255-1172D, and any other relief necessary from the town code. The following 5 variances are required in the application. Variances of 37 and 48 feet are required to construct the residence at porch 63 feet and 52 feet respectively from wetlands where 100-foot setback is required, and approximately 30-foot variance is required to allow the sanitary system to be installed 120 feet from wetlands where 150 feet is required. A 15-foot side yard variance is required to construct the residence 5 foot from the eastern side yard lot line where 20-foot setback is required. And a variance is required to allow the residence to extend 9.5 feet beyond the relative height restriction along the eastern lot line. The zoning district is A10 residence zone, X flood zone. And the secret class is type 2. I've asked council to instruct the board on the direction it should take as part of the submission from Jameson regarding the private easements. Rob, do you want to give us a brief
Yes.
on that?
So a private easement is an easement between the two property owners. It's not a town imposed easement or an easement is imposed by law. So that really is not for the board's consideration. You see this sometimes with homeowners associations where they have reduced setbacks than what's allowed by town code. And, you know, homeowners associations setbacks don't usurp the ability of the town to impose zoning regulations. So really it's a matter to be discussed and decided between the parties, but not the zoning board.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so that
fine.
goes to Jameson's note that if something were to come afterwards, that the town has nothing to do with those.
Right. It would be a civil dispute.
Yeah,
It's not our
That's correct.
jurisdiction at all.
okay.
Yeah, so just the last bit about that is that there was brought up at the hearing about the potential for that easement to allow them to clear to maintain a view. And of course, that easement would not supersede our easement, which doesn't allow.
Correct.
That's clear. Okay, thank you. The board will remember that this hearing was held on April 4th, 2023. The surveys we were working from, initial survey was from September 2022, but it was replaced by a June 29th, 2023 survey that we received later and was more appropriate to this discussion. The applicant was represented by Rich Warren of InterScience. The architect was Jim Merrill Architects. This parcel is located in Montauk and is an oceanfront property on the eastern extension of Old Montauk Highway. The property already has a 2005 NRSP approval for a 3,718 square foot residence, including a staircase to the beach. At that time, moving the house to the northeast to get it as far away from the wetlands to the west and the bluff to the south was proposed and accepted as part of that NRSP approval. In 2018, the ZBA approved there was a 2018 ZBA approval for a modification to move the sanitary system from the north to the south side of the house. In March of 2023, an extension of time was granted by the ZBA. So there's been some action on this property, and it goes back a little bit of ways here in terms of this board's involvement. The current ownership of the parcel dates to 2021. The current application has added stormwater in the current applications and in their proposal. They've added stormwater dry wells where none were included in the 2005 proposal. Some of the other things that they made as part of their most recent proposal, the driveway now includes a turnaround area where none was included in the earlier approval. That's an additional space that we have to consider. The new reconfigured residence is now 3,593 square feet with the garage now part of a 1,600 square foot basement. So the garage is now under a portion of the house. The new site plan includes 14,000 square foot of clearing where the 2005 approval allowed for 21,000 square foot of clearance. The IA system has been moved 8 foot further from the wetlands. The new roof line will stay below the line of the previous pyramid approval. And as a follow-up, I'll get into it, a follow-up document that came showed that they moved even further than that in adjusting the pyramid, the pyramid violation. In 2007 and 2008, the previous owner allowed this parcel to be used as access for material storage for construction at 402 Old Montauk Highway, which is immediately to the west. This resulted in some regrading and mounding taking place to change a portion of the natural grade. That was part of our discussion when we were out there and we took some photos in the field. We saw that it looked as if there might have been some artificial mounding had gone on and flattening out. That was part of that construction at the neighboring house, and that becomes a bit of an issue here as we move forward. The applicant stated in talking about the TAM that they had no problem agreeing to the conditions that were set forth by the planners in the TAM, and several of them were there, and there was an immediate acceptance by the applicant. Brian Frank pointed out that an additional easement had been added to this application. He talked. Rick Whalen, representing the neighbors to the east of 406 Old Montauk Highway, Christopher and Catherine Leonard, voiced a concern that the natural grade as of the 2005 ZBA approval be observed when calculating the pyramid variance associated with this new application. We did receive, and I'll mention in a minute, we did receive an updated survey and updated building plans, which did show us the natural grade at that portion of the house. Jameson McMillians, representing Tony Ingrao and the owner of 402 Old Montauk Highway, commented on a series of, and we just had a conversation about it, series of private easements that were conditioned between landowners, which it doesn't come under our purview. Question was raised by the chair as to whether or not, well, I've just said that, any legal agreement made from one to another had anything to do with our ruling here. InterScience responded to our request for additional information with a submission dated and received on July 7th, 2023 that included an updated survey dated June 29th, 2023 from Saskis, a septic plan dated also June 29th, 2023 from Maresca Associates, the planting and revegetation plan dated June 15th, 2023 from Jim Grimes Land Planting, updated architectural plans dated June 30th, 2023 from James Merrill Architects, and a grading and drainage plan from Arius Design. All of these were in response to requests we made during the hearing, and they were all responded to by the applicant. I think that we have the 2005 ZBA ruling to respect here, and it seems to me that an effort has been made to work in conjunction with the recommendations made by the planners now in both the TAM and elsewhere. The applicant is looking to increase the size of the driveway and parking area, and they are adding some oceanside decking. But I think that they've reduced clearing and the pyramid variance and the pyramid variance necessary has been reduced, and that the house and the septic are located in the best possible locations. This is another one of those sensitive lots that when we look at carefully, and it's an ocean front and it sits 60 feet above the ocean. And so there's a bluff, there's a potential receding bluff. When the original application was approved in 2005, an effort was made to move this house as absolutely far away from both the wetlands and the bluff as possible. That puts it very close to the neighbor immediately to the east. And because that previous approval is there, this new application followed that layout in terms of looking to match that footprint. I think that all precedes our ruling here tonight. We're looking at whether or not this new application rises to the level of being achieving an NRSP in our opinion. I think that this was a legitimate effort made by people who took the recommendation seriously. I think the house is moderate given the 2.8 acre size of the land. I think that the respect for the neighbors in terms of trying to do what they can to accommodate their questions. I think that this was a solid application, and we can go and I can cite here the code, but I do think that under 255-4-20 natural resource permit, I do think this rises to that. I don't think that we're worrying about this being out of character with the neighborhood, and I think that every effort has been made to preserve the natural resources and the environment here. And I think that the approval of the 255-11-72D, which is the height variance, the pyramid variance, I think that precedes us in that effort was made earlier in 2005, and that the improvements were made now and a redesign of the house. And they put a little chamfer on the roof line in the newest plans to also decrease the volume of the pyramid. So I'm willing to approve this application in its entirety.
Thank you. We'll go to Terry next.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna, I agree with my fellow board member. Just a couple of things I wanted to add. I'm not gonna go over all of that again. I too am looking to approve it. I thought the under garage was removed. And I'm looking at the architectural plans that they submitted on June 30th, and I don't see it on here. So I thought that portion of it was removed from the original project.
I looked at this. I didn't see that. You sure?
Huh?
I'm going to pull it back out again.
Yeah, the architectural plan is what I'm looking at, unless I'm missing it somewhere. I don't see it on the survey, but looking at that. That's the one we got, right?
That's the basement plans.
Yeah. But that and something else. Looking at April, side yard and pyramid, same as the granted
The
relief in
garage
2004. That did not change. Slightly different design, but comparable. And the environmental conditions similar also, except for some of the clearing. And they are adding the additional scenic easement. The only other comment I have that is on the survey that was also sent, that updated survey. They have a couple of things listed as scenic easement A. The new one listing is A, and there already is a scenic easement A, so I don't know if there's been confusion, but. Unless that's all one big scenic easement on the survey going across the green area there from the left where it says proposed scenic easement A. And then the other portion there on the right, the kind of reddish triangle.
Tyler, do you have any input on that?
From what I can tell, it kind of looks like they're proposing to include all of scenic easement A into the proposed
Is that
easement
what they're
A.
doing, expanding it out? just to
Extending
be
it
all
across that whole,
encompassing?
that's what it looks like to
That's
me.
what I
I don't
think
know
I
much about the
remember, too.
application.
All right, I just want
Yeah.
to mention
I
that.
remember that too.
Okay. All right. Other than that, I think member Johan covered everything, and I too am looking to approve the entire application as it is.
Thank you, Denise.
I agree with my fellow board members. In Sabrina Kelly's letter dated 7/7/23 from InterScience, the one concern I did have was the pyramid, and she addressed the pyramid concerns, and the revised plans show a proposed house that does not breach pyramid by more than 9 feet 6 inches from the existing natural grade, which was an issue as well at the hearing. And it was also approved in the original ZBA NRSP dated 11/30/2004. The new architectural plans comply with the previous granted pyramid variance and accounts for the existing natural grade at the time of the 2004 approval. The planting grade prepared by James Grimes Land Design has also been updated to include additional woody species and shrubs. It's important to note that the bluff on the subject premises appears to actually be more stable than the other areas of the shoreline and has not displayed the often dramatic erosion evident on nearby properties. I do agree about considering scenic easements over the wetlands and the adjacent 50-foot buffer. I think in this case, the applicant has made every effort to meet the NRSP standards and variance standards, and for these reasons, I am in favor of approving this application in its entirety.
Thank you. Joan?
I agree with everything my fellow board members have said. I have two tiny things to add. One is there was a 2007 ZBA decision where the staircase to the beach was modified. Thought I should mention that. And it seemed like it was mentioned that the revegetation plan should provide for the removal of non-native species and possibly replace it with low growth shrubbery. There were non-native species in the scenic easement area or in the area that they were revegetating. I don't know if we can make that a condition.
Well, did we address that with the James Grimes?
I thought in the updated one, I think we did.
Yeah.
I think we did.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that.
Thank you. I also agree with my fellow board members and don't have anything else to add. You covered it well. Thank you.
Can I just correct something?
Yeah, sure.
It looks like the proposed scenic easement A is this line here. There's a diagram of it down here. So I think the nomenclature is just, there's an existing A, B, and C or whatever, and then there's a proposed A and B. So they just reused the same,
Redefined it?
yeah, rather than calling it, E, F, G or whatever it would be.
Okay.
They just used A and B again.
All right.
Okay,
But
thank you.
So it's
Additional.
a 50-foot buffer to the wetlands.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Tyler. What about the garage?
I didn't see anything
I
about
don't
that.
see it there. I thought they said they moved it. I think back in the 2018 mod for the sanitary. They were moving the garage also.
The garage. Take a look in the drawing. The garage is there.
In the architectural drawing?
It doesn't look like it's on the architectural plans. That's the basement.
If you go to the basement plan, I just had it open.
It's a plan, the one we got dated 6/30.
We good?
I guess those are the
Yep, thank you.
plans that we're referencing, right? That date?
Yeah.
Okay, board members, next up on our agenda is Lori Shemla at 460 Further Lane. If you remember, the board decided 3-2 to deny this application. Subsequent to the denial, there was a question that came up of whether or not the more restricted town code from the state code, I think it was clear that the state code, the project met state code requirements for egress. However, there was a more restrictive code in the local town. There's a question of whether or not that was adequately adopted by the state, am I right, council? Or
Well, the
ratified,
process-
or,
The process when a local code is more restrictive than what the state code permits is you have to get a variance from the Department of State. So the question is the East Hampton Town Code section actually more restrictive than what the state allows? And if it is, did the town go through the process to get the variance from the Department of State?
but we were seeking whether or not that was fully accepted by the state, is that correct, or?
If the variance had been granted by the state.
Right, that's what we're trying to fit.
And that's not clear to us. at
Oh, it's
this
still
point.
not
It's
clear.
still not clear. So the
Oh.
question,
So
the
it should
question-
be,
the question is to those who are in favor of denying it, is would a covenant that the project or the application, is there a covenant that there will never be a second use or a second residence
or
proposed or
rented.
rented, would that covenant be adequate to change any member's mind? So, I'll poll the board here. I was one of the ones who approved it. I think member McGivern was. Ed, I don't know what your thought is, but we can have a discussion on it.
Yeah, so I'll say how I reached my decision was because if you remember that night, we had another one that was exactly the same interpretation of the code about access to the property, having proper access, and that it has to go through one central spot. There was a lot of discussion on the other one. This came up two items later. To me, it was exactly the same question, different locations, different architecture, but it was the same question. When it sort of all went into limbo, which has been in for a while here, where are we at? That became a question. Now, what you're proposing, Mr. Chairman, is whether or not if we were to restrict this with a covenant that said the only thing that could happen there is that it's part of the main residence, would we approve? My question would be, how does that relate to the code that we ruled on the other house for? In other words, what we're ruling on is the central access in one place.
Like in conflict.
I think the other one, if I remember, what was the garage? It was the
Yeah.
question of the
Yeah.
garage. And the garage was different in my consideration from this one, in that they were still seeking it to be a garage. They could have gone through the process of eliminating the garage, therefore
That
making
was
it
one.
safer. So
They
it
made
did,
a living space.
it did
that
have
we're gonna make them.
differences.
And,
to this
and the other distinguishing feature, I think, for me anyway, was the architecture was such that every room in the house had sliding doors that you could get outside. You know, it wasn't a question of if you were trapped by fire, the only egress was to go through the basement. You could just go straight out.
But if we're not counting the basement as GFA, you're kind of admitting it is a separate residence. Because there's, all right, let me just, one of the reasons I denied it, let me just get I did write my notes and I brought them tonight. I don't know why, but there was an alternative to like if you could construct an addition adjacent to one of the existing wings, which would allow for interior access to other portions of the residence. So in my mind, that was another method to go around rather than do this. Because this proposed addition doesn't really share a connection with the second story and is only connected to the rest of the residence through the basement. So I'm thinking if we're not counting GFA in our basement, we're sort of already admitting this is a separate habitat or residence, or everything else we approved
If they covenanted.
was connected to the second story.
If they covenant not to install a kitchen, would that change your mind?
Well, it doesn't, wouldn't the covenant
It's a-
prevent them from creating a second
On
residence?
local town code,
Yeah.
you have a point. On state code,
Right.
it meets state codes, so there's no issue there. There's no
So does
issue.
our
of
town
egress,
code-
so-
I'm not sure
Over-
it meets state code. Didn't, part of what
It
the
did meet state-
research said that portion of state code said you couldn't have egress through a garage or
Through garage, yeah.
only a
That's what
garage?
No,
that's what
garage,
the
that's a
building department said,
garage,
yeah.
not a basement.
It says garage specifically in the, yeah, right in the,
Yeah, but this is not the garage situation.
But that's the variance that was being granted
Well, the variance is from the local code,
from the local code.
not the
Right.
state code.
So what do you think, Terry?
Well, like,
So-
I'm going to stick with the way I feel about it. If the town code is legitimate and it got accepted, I'm not comfortable with the covenants. You know, we do covenants that are basically unenforceable. Because if somebody turns around and they do rent it out, who knows? So I'm
You have
sticking
no way of
with
enforcing it in
my
your mind.
original decision. Yeah, there's a number of these things that I object to things that, you know, we can't really know that they are following it or not. So
So,
I would like the final answer on whether the code is the code.
and does the code oversee what the state says?
Well,
You'd have to go to
town
them to,
code is done to make things a little more
Now,
restrictive than
I
state
happen to
code.
think the covenant does help cover it because it bolsters, because there is also another law on local town code. It was called the rental law. So if an owner did decide to rent, they have two obligations to meet. They have to meet rental law and they have to meet the covenant.
Yeah.
And honor the covenant, if you will. So I think it does kind of bolster that.
I also think that this is the tool we have, covenants, and we have to rely on it a little bit. So when Terry says that we don't know about any of the covenants we put in place until we have to go back to the house.
Yeah.
But we use them all the time because that's what we try to do to protect the property. So in that sense, I don't see that the covenant is something we should discount as a tool. I think it is a tool. But the question for me is just whether or not this is similar enough to the one that I was willing to deny, or this is unique in another way. Certainly the first time through, I certainly felt that. I don't know that the covenant covers us, and if Terry thinks it's not. And what do you think, Denise?
well, I was the one that kind of suggested that if we were in a situation where things didn't get properly done through the state and
Yeah.
the only thing I could think of is that we do a covenant, no kitchen, always a single family home. It would not be able to be rented.
I believe
But I'm
that
still-
no kitchen is
Nope.
also covered by local law and state code. You're not allowed to have a kitchen. So I think that, and you're not allowed to have a second kitchen in any residence,
Mhm.
right? So that's a state code thing as well.
Mhm.
So how much strength, Rob, do we have in just our local section of the code? What would
I
the,
mean,
if it went to an Article 78, what would we have to go to the state for a variance? How would that work? I guess I just want to know more about the process and why we would even consider changing our decision.
Are you still researching this?
Yeah, I think that's probably better left to a discussion, executive session.
Okay,
So you want to
so
table this?
can we
again?
table this and have an executive session on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. Thank you. All right, next we have Andrew Kaufman at 50 Oyster Shores Road in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax number 300-92-6-19. The size and location is 20,933 square feet at 50 Oyster Shores Road, map of Hampton Waters, number 2799, lot 35 in East Hampton. The description is a demolition of a 1,500 square foot, one-story residence and swimming pool, and the construction of a 3,200 square foot, two-story residence, swimming pool, decking, and driveway on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and coastal bluffs. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, variances from 255-430, minimum wetland setbacks, and 255-440, coastal setbacks of the town code, and any other relief necessary. The following 6 variances are required. Variances of 38 feet, 60 feet, and 66 feet are required to permit the residence swimming pool and pool patio and house patio to be located 62 feet, 40 feet, and 66 feet respectively from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. A 74.7 foot variance is required to locate the sanitary system 125.3 feet from wetlands where a 200-foot setback is required, and variances of 22.6 feet and 10.4 feet are required to construct the pool patio and house patio 27.4 feet and 39.6 feet respectively from bluff crest where 50 feet setback is required. The zoning district is B residence, VE and X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. This was in my district, so I'll lead off with the discussion. So the hearing date was on 6/27/2023. The survey is dated 5/31/23, and the building plans is 9/8/22. And it's a 2-story residence replacing a single-story residence. We also have a 2 memorandums of law, one dated 10/6/22 and one final one at 6/20/23. Septic system is being relocated 19 feet to 125 feet from the wetlands, and the existing septic system is in groundwater. The pool is being relocated from 10 feet to 50 feet. The clearing is proposed to bring it into H-pod, and the house is 3,200 square feet. Which the applicant reduced to 2,972 square feet. The property is improved with a 1,500 square foot 1-story residence constructed pursuant to 1959 building permit, and the swimming pool was constructed pursuant to a 1974 building permit. The property was reviewed by the zoning board in 2014 when an NRSP and wetland setback variance was granted to construct a 90 square foot addition onto the residence. The most recent certificate of occupancy was issued in 2015, and the applicant appears to be the owner of the record since 2012. The application is depicted on the Saska Surveying Company survey revised 9/13/22, building plans by Job and Moore Partners revised 9/14/22, and the Delandro Andrew sanitary plan dated 8/31/22. The property is located along Oyster Shores Road, along the southwestern shoreline of 3 Mile Harbor. The residence swimming pool and swimming pool retaining wall along the shoreline were constructed prior to the adoption of the town's natural resources special permit regulations and wetland setbacks established in 1984. The town acquired the adjoining property to the south for conservation purposes in 2016. Although a 12-inch water main provides public water along Oyster Shores Road, the adjoining property to the north is served by a private well. It is unclear if a documented effort has been made to connect the neighboring property to the north to public water, which would allow the sanitary system to be in the northwest corner of the property where the greatest wetland setback can be met. The applicant, in his memorandum of law and during the hearing, states in essence that due to the environmental improvements that are being proposed, the application should be approved and that the proposed will bring the property into full compliance with HPOD. Memorandum of law also states that the property has a pre-existing coastal erosion structure, which in fact is not a coastal erosion structure, but a retaining wall for the swimming pool. He later acquiesces that this is not a coastal erosion structure and offers to remove it from the application and the property. He states that if you were to look at this property as vacant land, you could consider this as an aggressive development, but states that we are to look at this as an already developed property being improved. In my mind, the application is deplete with inaccuracies. The memorandum of law states 8 properties in the neighborhood receiving NRSP approvals, but fails to describe the similarities with those cited in this application. The planning department stressed the fact that this is an overly aggressive redevelopment of the property, and the Kaufmans have come to him in the past, and the planning department was amenable to certain to certain redevelopments based on a matter of right, albeit, come on. Albeit a reasonable expansion. This application goes well beyond what the Kaufmans were previously considering and has surprised the planning department. The proposed house is twice the size of the existing with a 98% increase in GFA, a 26% increase in coverage, and a total coverage of 45%, where 50% is the maximum. This property lacks a conforming building envelope. A 100-foot setback for building and a 200-foot setback for septic cannot be met with this, which is an HPOD requirement. Therefore, the applicant's assessment that the property will be brought fully into HPOD is incorrect. The planning department doesn't object to granting of variances or a larger house or swimming pool, as they have exhibited with discussions with the Kaufmans previously. Natural resources are a part of our zoning. This application fails to meet the NRSP standards on every level. Properties of this nature are allowed to be given relief from the front yard setbacks. A 15-foot relaxed setback is reasonable and would yield greater setbacks from the water. A smaller house which maximizes the setbacks is a reasonable standard. The cumulative result, as a matter of precedent, will have a long-lasting negative impact on the character of the neighborhood, as it will on the environment. The fragility of our natural resources was defined 40 years ago and is clearly valid today as developments and redevelopments continue. Pursuant to 255-850B, in deciding whether to grant a special permit, the board shall apply the general standards and specific standards set forth in Article 5 of the town zoning code. For a natural resources special permit, the applicants must satisfy the criteria set forth in 255-40 general standards and 255-551 specific standards and safeguards for natural resources special permits of the town code, specifically subpart D, preservation of natural resources, and must show that the proposed action is compatible with the purposes of 255-111, town's purposes of zoning, and 255-410, town's purposes for protection of natural resources. I find that the nature of the proposed use will not be in harmony with and promote the general purposes of the town of East Hampton zoning law as described in 255-111 of the town code. I find the lot area insufficient, inappropriate, and inadequate for proposed use. A 98% increase in GFA and a 26% increase in total lot coverage from wetlands is an inappropriate level of development and will set a poor precedent moving forward in an area with many similar size and constrained properties. A plan that increases setbacks and reduces nonconformities while maintaining or reducing coverage would be appropriate. I find that the proposed use is not fairly typical of other parcels in this neighborhood and will prevent the orderly and reasonable use of adjacent properties. I find that the site of the proposed use is not suitable for a location of such a use in town and will not, in fact, be compatible with its surroundings and with the character of the neighborhood and the community in general, particularly with regard to visibility, scale, and overall appearance. I find that the proposed use does not conform to the town's code definition of special permit use where such definition exists, or with the generally accepted definition of such use where no definition is included in the code. I define that inadequate buffer yards and screening cannot and will be provided and will not be provided to protect adjacent properties and land uses from possible detrimental impacts of proposed use. I find that inadequate provisions cannot and will not be made for the collection and disposal of stormwater runoff, sewage, refuse, and other liquid or gaseous waste, which is proposed use will just generate, meaning there is other better locations on the property to do so. This application proposes a significant expansion of the existing residents in a highly sensitive environmental area. Although there is a proposed improvement in the environmental conditions, the application fails to reasonably expand the property to further mitigate appropriate levels of development rather than a reason to expand and build larger residents in constrained areas. I find that the natural characteristics of the site are such that the proposed use may not be introduced without undue disturbance or disruption to important natural features, systems, or processes, and without significant negative impact to groundwater and surface waters on and off the site. And with that, I'll also add that the application also was lacking a proper protocol for the removal of the swimming pool and the retaining wall. I find that the proposed use is not in compliance with 255-410 of the town code. Town's purpose for protection of natural resources, specifically paragraph E, the preservation of the town's beaches, dunes, bluffs, wetlands, marshes, and other coastal resources, which together are integral to the character of East Hampton and its social and economic well-being. I find that the proposed use is not in compliance with 255-551 of the town code. Specific standards and safeguards for natural resources special permits, specifically paragraphs D, preservation of natural resources, requiring that structures be located upland and located so that no natural resource, feature, or system will be diminished in size, polluted, degraded, or lost, or placed in peril thereof in order to establish a structure or use. The standards for board review of an area variance is pursuant to town law 267B3B. In making its determination whether to grant an area variance, the board is to take into consideration the benefit to the applicant if the variance is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. The town law 267B3C directs the board in granting area variances to grant the minimum variance that is deemed necessary to adequate and at the same time preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and the welfare of the community. Pursuant to town law 267B3B, the board shall consider whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the grant of an area variances, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variances, and 3, whether to request area variance is substantial. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district, and 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created and considered to be relevant to the decision of Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. So therefore, I find that this application fails in every respect to meet the standards set before us in this board. Next, Denise, you want to go?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Deline, for that very, very thorough summation. That being said, I'd like to talk about the harbor protection overlay regulations, which maintain and improve water quality in major harbors, creeks, and ponds. This regulation will help prevent stormwater runoff into town waterways, preserve indigenous vegetation, reduce impact from residential swimming pools. Our waterways are our most prized feature. These regulations support a place to swim, fish, hunt, boat, observe wildlife, and support scenic tranquility and beauty. This entire property slopes down. When looking at the size of the house, I feel that the house is completely inappropriate based on the constraints of the property. And because the pool is sitting in 3 Mile Harbor practically, is not really a reason to grant a 68-foot variance for a pool when you're doubling the size of a house and adding a second story. I'm looking at whether or not an effort has been made to meet the standards for a variance or a natural resource special permit, and the answer is no. Literally, why have a zoning code? This would be a precedent-setting case if approved, since there are, as stated by Mr. Tarbett, over 26 homes, all built before zoning. So if people were to come forward with these sort of applications, it would have an extreme change in the character of the neighborhood. Now, let's address the reasoning behind IA systems and the town's wanting to go forward with that legislation. The benefits of a modern low nitrogen septic system should not be offset by increasing the size of houses. The benefits of this type of system should be used to mitigate appropriately sized development. Brian Frank spoke during the public hearing, gave us a little background. There's a mix of non-conforming development in this area. There's been 48 years of regulated NRSP in this area, which was adopted in '84. This is off of Springy Bank, so the groundwater that flows out from the upland aquifer, there's a lot of hydraulic head here, and the water flows out onto the beach here, is the reason it's called Springy Banks. It is inaccurate that all homes have lawn to the water and was pretty much oversimplified by the applicant's agent. Mr. Frank testified that the wetlands were reflagged in 2013, and he had been working with the applicant for 3 years or more. Originally, the applicant was talking about adding a 500 square foot addition on the landward side of the house, a swimming pool being reconstructed, in which the planning department actually supported orienting the pool parallel to the house, removing the retaining wall. And despite the magnitude of the variance, the benefit would be naturalization of the shoreline, giving wetlands room to migrate, and removing the retaining wall. So obviously, when the application was actually submitted, the planning department was surprised when the redevelopment of the site and the mass and scale, they were taken back. This is not what they had worked with all those years with the applicant. So at some point, this application took a very quick turn. The house is twice the size. Total coverage of the property is going up to 45%, where 50% is the max. 98% increase in GFA. There's the whole lot lacks a conforming building location. I object because of the standards and the scale and mass of this project. In my opinion, this application represents a complete lack of understanding of the purposes of zoning. This application on every level fails to meet the standards for natural resource special permits and variances. There is no variance standard that says if what you are proposing is better than what exists, then you now meet the standard. Now, some may say we're a board of relief. I've heard people say that in the past, but that's only the case if you meet the criteria which is dictated by the current code for natural resource special permits and variance standards. I feel this application has failed in every standard outlined in the code, and for these reasons, I am denying this application in its entirety.
Thank you. Terry?
Great, both the chair. It won't be that repetitive, nor as eloquent. I too am going to deny the entire application for a lot of the reasons already stated, going back to the total coverage of 45%, where 50% is the max, the lack of a conforming building envelope at all. The sanitary could be done better. I think on the newest survey that we had, that well was not on the survey. I'm not sure if that will, the survey had some glitches in it that I wasn't sure if it was totally accurate or not. And one version that we had gotten, I think the well was shown on the northern property, and then the next one it was not. But I too find that, well, the variance standards, I think, are large, and they can be improved upon, as stated earlier by the chair. The 15% setback that is reduced to encourage homeowners to move as close to the roadsides as possible and get away from the harbor. That this application did not take advantage of that. I think it does not meet the variance standards themselves are large, of 60 and 66 feet for the swimming pool and the pool patio. And also, they feel it does not meet the general standards of special permit uses 255-540B and B lot area. It's not, the lot area is sufficient, appropriate, and adequate for the use as well as reasonably anticipated operation and expansion thereof. I think it does not meet that. 255-540 general standard D, compatibility. It is not suitable for the location of such a use and cited at this location. It will not be compatible with its surroundings and the character of the neighborhood and the community in general, particularly with regard to visibility, scale, and overall appearance. We did see during the hearing, Brian Frank showed us the GIS of some of the houses to the north of that, and they all looked like, whether they had been moved in the past or not, they all looked like they were closer to the roadside than this house, or the way this house was planned to propose to be. I think it also does not meet the specific standards for NRSP 255-551. D, the preservation of the natural resources. All structures should be located on upland and located so no natural resource feature or system designated in 255-412 will be diminished in size, polluted, degraded, or lost, placed in peril thereof in order to establish such structure or use. Number 2 item under that, if it's inadequate, this does have a non-conforming building envelope. Item D2 is alternative designs entailing smaller buildings or structures, reduced yard or other setbacks, or diminished or reconfigured areas of use are determined not to be effective in preventing the loss. I think there are alternative designs that could be considered in this case, including that of a smaller building and changing some of the setbacks. What else? I think the rest of my board members, did you find, which,
I
is
did.
that the new survey they've had the well, or did not have the well?
This is,
Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
well, that's not going to change,
That was up to the 20.
but this is where the well is.
Yeah, that had been on there. So that was the rationale for the sanitary system going on the southerly portion. But I believe the next survey that came in after that did not show that well. So I don't know which is more accurate. But if it's not a well, then I think sanitary could be proposed in a different location, better location on this property also. So I am denying this application as on the entire application.
Thank you. Next. Yeah, I'm going to thank everyone for the complete and comprehensive analysis of this application that we've heard from all 3 board members, including the chair here before this. I think it was a very complete and substantial argument, and I'm thankful for it. I'm not going to repeat an awful lot. I think that it comes down to, there's a lot of particulars, and thank you for enumerating them, but I do think that the scale of the project is too large, given the size of the property. That's a very simple way to put it, but that is exactly what's going on. We're taking from a 1,500 square foot house to a 2,972 foot square house on a small lot that cannot support a house of that size. This idea of the redevelopment, having had some history and conversation, it was pointed out by Member Savaries that there was a history of discussion with the planners, and they were headed somewhere, and then this massive project gets thrown our way. All these things that have been mentioned are factors. The fact that there's so many better alternatives to what they've done, the more respect for the code, the HPOD considerations, all of these are important. I think that let me just go to the exact figure, that the building coverage going from 1,824 square feet to 2,591 square feet, that's sort of extraordinary that it would come on this small lot and think that we're going to go with this larger project and this particular and very sensitive area. It was pointed again, I remember Savaries, how it does pitch down. We have to consider what we're doing when we harden these areas. We have to consider what we're doing when we're allowing this kind of development. And I do think that, as again was pointed out, There are very many similar properties there, and a precedent that we would set here would be we'd hear about that over and over again, and other people coming in to want a 3,000-foot house on a small lot. I don't think it's appropriate. I think for all the reasons mentioned, that it does not come up to the variance standards, and I'm not willing to approve this, so I'm going to deny this application.
Thank you. Joe?
I'm going to deny this application, and I'm not going to repeat the comprehensive review of everyone. I had a couple little comments. I think the applicant is right that we do need to incentivize improvements on properties, but you can improve property, you have to do it within the framework of the NRSP and the zoning code, as Member Savarese said. And I think that's a missing element here, that they overemphasize the improvements without accounting for the code. I also was troubled by the fact that they listed 8 cases with no time frame as comparable cases or examples. And it was difficult to apply those examples without actually seeing the cases. So in some ways it was misleading, I found. That was in the memo of law dated June 20th, 2023. What else? And lastly, when I was looking at the application, I was thinking, well, is it as simple as just denying the pool? But I don't think it's as simple as just denying the pool. I think, as I'm going to repeat what everyone has said, the house itself is an aggressive development of the property and could be better placed on the property, along with the IAS system.
Thank you. Council, we good? You're good. Thank you. Next, we have Christopher Flanagan at 110 Neck Path in Springs. Suffolk Tax Map number 300-103-8-1.3. Size and location is 113,381 square feet at 110 Neck Path in Springs. The description is to allow the property to remain beyond the clearing limits established in the Water Recharge Overlay District. The relief sought is one variance of 7,178 square feet is required from 235-365 Water Recharge Overlay District regulations of the town code to allow 30,328 square feet of clearing to remain on a property where the maximum clearing permitted is 23,150 square feet and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A3 residence, zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. This is in Member Savarese's area. So
Thank you. Okay, the one thing I'm not sure about is the date of this hearing. I think it was June 27th, but you can correct
It was
me.
June 27th.
Okay,
It
good.
was.
Yes.
Okay, good guess. Okay, so
Wait, what are we doing? Flanagan?
we're on Flanagan.
Okay, it was 7:25.
It was,
Oh,
I have it written down.
7:25.
I had it as July 18th.
Oh, boy.
It is July 18th. Sorry, I have it written down as July 18th.
July 18th. Okay, so as agreed by all,
As is the rest of the decisions this evening.
this application was
all four were the same
held
Yeah.
on July 18th for their public hearing. It was represented by Mr. Whalen, Richard Whalen spoke on behalf of the application. The parcel is improved with a 6,235 square foot, 2-story house with porches, decking, balconies, swimming pool, hot tub, patio, and tennis court. And the most recent C of O was issued in 2019. All of the existing structures are depicted on the Saskis survey dated revised March 22nd, 2022. There were no callers. And David French from Whitmore Landscaping gave the status of the planting plan. So as we have already said, this project description is to allow the property to remain beyond the clearing limits established in the water recharge overlay district. One variance of 7,178 square feet is required from section 255-3-65 to allow 30,328 square feet of clearing to remain on the property where the maximum clearing permitted is 23,150 square feet. A neighbor, Mr. Peter Arno, submitted a letter not in favor of granting this application. He would be surprised if we granted this. I'm certain many of our neighbors would also like the ability to clear most of their property, which we are all concerned will become more common and change the nature of the community. Now, I'd like to talk about the purposes for a water recharge overlay district. It's to provide for the application of a system of needed additional regulations for properties located in areas where disproportionately large quantities of rainwater are recharged into and stored into the underground aquifer in order to help ensure the continued sufficiency and purity of the town's irreplaceable groundwater supply and the sole source of drinking water. What is applied to lawns and landscaped areas in the forms of fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides get absorbed into the ground, ultimately making their way to groundwater. The importance of the water recharge overlay district is reflected in this type 1 action list found under chapter 128 of the town code, which requires that any variance to the clearing or fertilized turf restrictions set off in water recharge overlay district requires full type 1 review under SECRA. The clearing regulations for properties within a water recharge overlay district went into effect in December of 1984. The clearing on this property cannot be considered pre-existing non-conforming since the premises were vacant in 1984. And the survey associated with Mr. Whalen went through the whole history of why the clearing calculations happened and what was here in this year and that year. But the bottom line is the survey associated with the 2000 CO depicts an existing clearing of 37,752 square feet, where 23,150 are permitted. There was discussion about errors taking place with COs and multiple things that went on, creating this situation to happen. Many times I'm actually sympathetic to an applicant who has, things have gone wrong or awry in the process or with the building department. But in this particular case, we have to see that these properties be revegetated to the maximum extent possible, and variances only be approved when the only option would be to demolish an existing structure in order to revegetate. I really feel in this particular situation, a high bar really has to be set to allow clearing to exceed the maximum allowed in this important area of town, which is vital to the protection of town sole source aquifer. Protecting the Amagansett Springs aquifer is especially important because since Montauk receives supplemental water from Amagansett, Stony Hill, as the available aquifer in Montauk itself, is insufficient. Montauk relies on Amagansett for supplemental groundwater, making the protection of this area even more important, and the impacts on this parcel extend far beyond the property boundaries. You go through the variance standards, whether the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. Absolutely, it surely can. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for applicant to pursue. There was discussion about additional revegetation that, in my opinion, should take place, and if not, that is another feasible way to address this. Whether the requested area variance is substantial. Yes, it is. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? Yes, it will. If we contaminate or ruin our groundwater, it affects everyone in this town. Whether the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance was self-created, it absolutely was. So for these reasons, I am not in favor of granting this application, and I'm denying this application in its entirety.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Joan.
I agree with Member Cerese's very comprehensive view on the water recharge overlay district and its purposes. The property is overcleared and there are various reasons for it. However, they have offered to revegetate and the cost allegedly is over $100,000. They did, as I understand it, agree as an additional condition that they would stop clearing the understory. Whalen, on behalf of Rick Whalen, on behalf of the applicant, said that it was clear to his client that he knows what the rules are now. I'm inclined to grant this application. I do think an effort could be made to revegetate around the 3,000 square feet around the pool. But I wanted to hear other people's thoughts.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, so this is a tough one because I think Member Savarese laid out exactly what we should be doing when we consider what happens in these HPOD areas. But the problem here for me is
Not
that,
HPOD water.
I'm sorry, water recharge. I'm
Water
sorry,
recharge, yeah, that's
sorry.
The
I'm not looking
rod.
down. Yeah. But I do think that we have this history here that goes on about issues of building permits and C of Os. And it's difficult because I was out on the site and there is the potential, as was mentioned just now, to insist on replanting and revegetating in and around the pool. But basically the planning plan was approved and that they've approved and they're working with is basically revegetating everything but a hardened surface. So it was mentioned then by the planners that this, I'm going to read it directly, cooling regulations for properties within with WROD's districts went into effect in '94. The clearing of this property cannot be considered pre-existing. That's already been said. But no clearing calculations of that. And that we come down a little further. The planning department recommends and will continue to recommend an application where CFO is issued an error or not, the property be revegetated to the maximum extent possible. And various variances only be approved when there's no other option clearly available to them. They also point that they do not recommend the removal of previously approved hardened surfaces. This is where the hard part comes on this application. We are not in a position to insist that because there's a basic, the CFO has been granted, that a tennis court's removed to get us down, to proper clearing. That would be the one thing you could do easily here, remove the tennis court and you get back to the proper clearing restrictions. I think it's tough. I think it's hard. I think that they've made an effort here with this proposal, this proposed drawing we have on the new revegetation, to revegetate just about everything that can be done. We can, as a board, insist that the area immediately around the pool, that grassy area, get vegetated and they can only have a small access to their pool area. That's an option, I suppose. But there are no easy options here to come up with another 7,000 square feet. The only option would be that we say something that's there, that's pre-existing, that's been approved, that's hardened, it's got to be removed. It was suggested during the hearing that perhaps a section of the driveway could come out.
correct.
And the section of the driveway might come out. I think you'd have to engineer that to make sure that it was still possible to bring in and turn in there and make turns around. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. I'm saying that's an option. But all of these fall into a category that was stated by our own planning department that they do not recommend taking out existing structures in order to meet the compliance here. So
But that driveway does circulate, I mean, it's a big driveway. You're not backing out, you're pulling in, you're going around.
It's a
You
circular
could
driveway.
reconfigure that driveway. No one's suggesting that they remove a tennis court.
Okay, but I'm
I
just
was
saying.
never suggesting that.
No, no.
Let him finish.
No, but that wasn't what I wasn't suggesting that either, that you are. I'm just saying is that the hard part here is that if you look for 7,000 feet, you've got to find something large to take out. We have 7,000 square feet. And if you take out some large structure, if we want to talk about requiring some reduction on the driveway, I guess that can be done. We can come in with a single driveway and then get rid of their circular driveway, and we can gain some footage. However, it is asking them to remove a previously existing hardened surface that's been approved in a C of O that was issued to them. So I'm going to go with Joan on this and say that I'm going to approve the application. I'm certainly willing to listen to other people's opinions about how much we could maybe ask to revegetate. But I kind of think this is a rock and a hard place where we wish that it wasn't the case, but this pre-exists are looking at this application at this time.
Would you include as a condition that there'd be no further clearing of the
Yeah,
understory?
of course. Yeah, and I think that was
Yeah.
something that was brought up by
Yes,
the
of
neighbor.
course.
Well, that was the neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that when the neighbor commented on that, we were not particularly aware of it on our visit. It was shut down the other side. And then he immediately said they would condition that. So, yeah, I mean, they can't do any more clearing. They can't do any more damage. I didn't see when I was out there, just as a practical observation, that there was an awful lot that could be done. I will agree with Member Savarese that we could have a more dramatic conversation about the driveway.
Yes.
But that
I
would be
like that.
something that's a real change and something that I think could be challenged because after all, it was part of a previous CFO.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Terry?
Exactly.
Okay. I agree that, this is very important. I agree everything Member Savarese said. I am a little bit, I guess somewhere halfway between, I think, the other two board members and Member Savarese, although I do think this may come down to a denial. I do feel, as stated by the planner, that they could do the lawn area around the swimming pool, and I believe they should do that. And that it would still leave it 3,000 square feet over cleared, but to me, that is a compromise I'm willing to accept. This- Right now, it would, with the current plan that was approved by the Natural Resources Department, it will ultimately be over cleared by 7,178. So I find that to be a reasonable compromise. I think that additional revegetation, I guess it's a little, 4,000 square feet, should be done. And the discussion of the driveway, no one that was brought up at the hearing, Rick Whalen stated that they would have to clear other areas to adjust the parking area. And I have no idea what amount of clearing that would be, that would encompass. I would be open to the driveway being redone. But I definitely think that minimally, that the area around the pool, with that roughly 4,000 square feet around that pool area should be done. So I'm not, where does that leave me? I guess I'm denying.
Well, I'm going to
I
wait
guess
for
I'm
Chairman Delane,
denying
and then I want to talk again.
variance of 7,178 square feet. If we condition it on further revegetation.
Were you moved at all by all the errors in the COs? I
Well-
mean, I feel
Well,
like,
okay, there's a history
You mind if I
there.
go? Let me go.
Oh,
and then we
I'm
go
so
to-
sorry.
before we start
I'm so
our
sorry.
discussion.
Yeah,
So let me
and then
just
I would like to.
Sorry.
add my 2 cents, and then we can go to discussion. I'm happy to do that, because I too, without blinking an eye, I think water recharge overlay districts are a very important code that we have to respect and adhere to. And I think that bringing it back into its maximum case is critical. This is not the first case we've had before us, and especially in my tenure on this board. The previous discussions we have had, there was a period of time where the town was not doing its job in verifying clearing limits, and a number of applications have gone by, and C of Os have been issued based on their lack. So it brings to question, what is the culpability to the town? And the previous decisions we had is we felt that somewhere in the middle is the most maximum in these cases, and we have approved these applications based on that perceived culpability with the town. As unfortunate as it is that you find yourself in that position, I agree with the vice chair and other board members on that, to that degree. In this application, what stuck out to me was that the applicant did go to the Natural Resources Department, negotiate a fair and reasonable clearing, and I believe based on that standard, that approval, I'm compelled to approve this application.
Based on the revegetation by natural resources?
I would agree. Well, I would agree that we could add some re-veg to what we discussed with around around the pool or whatever. I would agree with that, but I would find it hard pressed to deny this application based on that process, which is a process with the Natural Resources Department.
Okay, so.
Okay, can I make
Can
some
I?
more comments?
Can I make a comment?
May I?
Go ahead, go for it.
Okay, you first.
Me first?
Yeah, go
Well, I was
ahead.
just going back to the history where we did have
Right.
previous applications. Rick Whalen had submitted 5 different applications where we had approved clearing, overclearing variances, Claflin, Rosenstein. I remember some of those. I was on the board for some of them, not all of them. And I think it went back to the surveys that had been done at the time. After the water recharge overlay district was defined and coded, that the surveys did not contain the clearing calculations. So we did always sympathize with the applicants on that. And I believe we did, from what I can recall, compromise on something like 50% of what that overclearing would
It was
be.
50%.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
our.
Now, that said, that goes back to maybe 2017, 2018. I personally feel that it should be stronger, but in this case, without taking out some structure, the best I feel we could do is that area around the pool and that 4,000 square feet. So again, I want to stand on that, but it was something about the surveys at the time when the code changed, that the surveying companies did not add clearing to the surveys just until they were found out, I guess, and made to do it by the
But
town.
in this case,
But-
even when there was clearing added to the survey, they gave a C of O. It was the latest one. So that's problematic.
Yeah, but
So, you
in
know.
terms of water
If you look
recharge
at the
overlay
property
districts,
card,
that's,
If you look
that's
at the
not,
property
you
card,
know,
2009, there's a note under that after, with the C of O, which doesn't talk about clearing, but there's a note in there that survey clearing is not approved clearing. They never submitted updated survey after re-veg, updated by AG on 7/2/2020.
That's 2020. That's right. That's when they
Yeah,
got found out.
I know, this
That's
is,
when-
right,
That's when it all started.
That's when it
That's when they
started.
were,
but they were supposed to
that's when
submit
they were
another,
cited.
right. But
So anyway.
anyway, so where are we?
So where are we with this?
so let me
Um,
add one thing. I would, I feel just because a CO was issued in error, really, to me, is not relevant because we're talking about the purposes of a water recharge overlay district. So I'm trying to get as close as I can to 7,178. Now, if that means Mark Abramson's revegetation plan, the lawn area around the swimming pool, and reconfiguring the driveway, which is huge, I would be amenable to approving it, but that would have to be a condition of approval to come as close to the 7,178 as possible, because has everybody visited this site?
Yeah.
All right, so it's completely circular.
Mhm.
I mean, completely round. There could be a turnaround, you could go the other way, there could be a reconfiguration of the driveway. So we could get additional, and again, my only concern is this is a water recharge overlay district.
I mean, it is a large parcel. It's almost.
And it's a
3
large
acres.
parcel.
It's almost 3 acres.
And there's a lot on the parcel, and nobody is suggesting that anything be taken out. I'm just suggesting that because it's a water recharge overlay district, that we really try to meet this, get as close to this number as possible. So I would be amenable to granting if we reconfigured the driveway, did the lawn area around the swimming pool with the revegetation plan that's already been approved by Natural Resources.
So should we pick a number
Can I,
and
I-
they
I-
can do
I
it
don't-
in a
I don't know.
combination of those two things?
Go ahead.
I don't know.
besides the other constraints applicable to this specific case, I'm also mindful of prior ZBA decisions that were attached to the July 14th, 2023 letter, some of which were substantial and did not require the applicants to get to the absolute maximum. One of them, the application of Schwartz, granted almost a 11,000 square foot variance. The other variances,
Were they in water recharge overlay districts?
Yeah.
They
yeah.
all were?
I don't know about all of them. I know the ones that I was involved in were, but they were different sizes.
They were different sizes, so
But the
I'm
properties were
qualifying it,
different
but I
sizes,
think the
so-
board's practice has not held people's feet to the fire. And this was a negotiated re-veg plan with the Natural Resources Department. Maybe we need to have a discussion with the Natural Resources Department, but I also think this guy is willing to spend, $100,000 to revegetate his property. That's meaningful money. And I don't think we want to deter people from revegetating, as much as possible. I'm not happy with the outcome, but I think given the board's past practices and the town's past practices, that it's a good step in the right direction. And maybe we need to have a discussion with the town attorney and the Natural Resources Department and the building department to get straight exactly what the policy is.
Doesn't the coverage of this thing already exceed the clearing, right? That's what we're saying, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
coverage-
yeah.
The total coverage is already, so
By
not only,
seven,
but
by
my
the
point-
amount being asked
My
for.
point is that not only is town culpable in giving C of Os, but they also gave building permits.
Mhm,
So this is like a double jeopardy
mhm,
type of situation.
Well, I think going forward, some of these go back to 2017. I personally feel that even our water recharge, look at we get letters, I get emails every day from water department. I'm not in a water recharge overlay district,
that we're
but
having a
we're
drought.
talking about,
Right.
water recharge, the importance of it, don't.
Nobody disagrees with that here.
Yeah, no, I know, and it's,
This is-
so
these
as
are
far
tough
as past
decisions.
practice, I don't know that we just go by past practice. These are not precedent setting. We have to look at it each one as it goes, and as conditions worsen, we need to have a higher standard.
And
Yeah,
these
but-
variances granted affect other property owners in the neighborhood, one of which sent a letter
But
expressing those concerns.
But if the Natural Resources Department was clear on its enforcement power, then we wouldn't be in a position of having to single someone out to set a new precedent, which in my mind sets us up for an appeal and an Article 78, because we're being arbitrary and capricious and singling this one property out.
I don't look at it like I'm certainly not singling out this map. I mean, I'm strictly looking at this from it did come up during the public hearing about reconfiguring the driveway. The driveway is huge. And if we did reconfigure the driveway, we could get that much more revegetation done to better meet the water recharge overlay district regulations.
But isn't that a conversation that the Natural Resources Department should have had?
I don't feel that I have to sit here and base my decision tonight. If that was the case, it wouldn't be before us for a variance.
Right.
We would just have been
Right.
able to say, okay, go and do it. But it doesn't rest solely on what the
Yeah.
But
Natural
at the
Resource
same time-
Department did.
And at the same time, and this is just the other side of it, for argument's sake, if you will. Are we to get into redesigning a driveway now? When we didn't bring up the driveway, I don't think in the hearing.
It
We
did
brought-
come up
It did
during
come
the
up at the
hearing.
But we brought up more the area around the pool.
Yeah.
The driveway
The
came
area of the
up.
pool was brought up in the TAM too,
Right.
as a possibility. of
Right, so I
gaining
think
We
another
brought up
more
the
nexus to
driveway.
that than
We
there is a
brought up the
and I don't
driveway.
know how we approve a plan
Well,
and say we want to reconfigure the driveway. I
Mhm.
don't,
yeah, the
I
problem.
think that's beyond our
Is that,
purview. Either
Rob,
you got to
can you
deny
help
it
us out
then,
here?
or.
Is it beyond our purview to condition, have a condition of approval that we would like to see? I mean, that's a very big driveway.
No, it's
But the problem is the property has the C of O,
Yeah.
which,
On
and
that
it
driveway.
reflect, right,
Mhm.
reflects,
C
the
of O
survey
on the
reflects
property,
that
that's the thing.
driveway. Without getting the applicants,
Well, they also have a CO on what we're asking about revegetating around the swimming pool. So how do we? can make
Well,
a
no.
condition of
yeah, but you're not asking to remove
Clearing
anything,
isn't-
you're just asking to put plantings around the
Mhm.
swimming pool. Nothing is being removed.
I see.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's just, I think it's very unfortunate and everybody's made excellent points, but as was mentioned by the chair, these are C of O hardened surfaces that
Mhm.
exist on the property and the town may have dropped the ball and maybe the building department did and maybe the ZBA has in the past. But either way, what we're looking at is a homeowner with these appointments on his land that were approved by the town on more than one occasion. It was pointed out by the chair. So as much as we'd like to see this come down, I don't know what the options are except to do what everyone else has said and, has to revegetate that small lawn area, 3,000 feet around the pool.
4,000.
4,000, I think, and
It
it would
would
bring us
reduce
down.
it. It would
So then it'll
still
bring us down
Reduces
to.
it substantially.
It would substantially.
All right, so I would feel right with conditioning it on that.
On the lawn area around the
Yes,
swimming pool,
correct.
which would then bring it down to about
Okay with that.
3,000.
It would still be 3,000 overcleared according to the TAM. if they did the
Denise, I
revegetation around the pool.
totally respect your point of view.
Yeah,
I just think that we're in a
totally.
hard
I
spot
totally
here.
understand.
We're
I
just in a
appreciate
hard
that.
spot.
It is a hard spot.
So is this a summation, Mr. Chairman?
Are we okay with that? We don't have to agree. We can take a vote.
Mhm.
Joe?
Yeah, I think conditioning it on a request that they make best efforts to revegetate around the pool, I'm good.
Okay,
I am too.
I am too.
I am too.
I'm not,
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm not because during the public hearing, the driveway reconfiguration did come up. And I do feel that at some point, the tide has to change out here and we need to start respecting the regulations. They're put there for our own protection and our neighborhoods. So for those reasons, I'm going to stick with my denial.
Thank you. All right, next we have Carlos Silva.
Yes, because I care about all of you.
If we knew Mark was coming in tonight, we probably could have moved Gardner's Marina up further instead of last.
Sorry about that.
You invite him?
Should tell them.
Want to do the marina next?
I'll have to leave. All right, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
We can do the Marina next to get him out of here. Would you like us to do that?
Unless you're having so much fun.
Must be fascinating.
I will leave and come back. Well, I recuse myself.
Oh,
She's recused on it. Yeah.
I'm not prepared to lead on that,
Oh,
so.
that's yours.
You can lead on
Roy
it.
did it.
That's right.
I didn't do any, I just have notes.
I just have miscellaneous.
Who did it? Who did it?
What do you mean?
We
I'm
didn't
not,
read it.
I forgot she recused herself.
Oh, yeah.
I thought she was leading on it.
Well, we don't have to do it tonight.
Well, I did some notes. I mean,
Sweet.
Are you okay on lead on it? Let's go with it, because
well,
I.
you know the way I lead. You see my notes versus
All right, let's go. with it.
everybody
Let's
else's,
just go
but
with it.
what the
Let's
hell?
read
We'll
it in
give
and
it a
let's
shot.
start a discussion on it.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
then we can go from there. So we have Gardner's Marina at 35 3 Mile Harbor, Hog Creek Highway in Springs, Suffolk tax map number 300-93-1-8. Size and location is 5.5 acres, approximately total 35 3-mile Harbor, Hog Creek Highway in Spring, Suffolk tax map number 300-93-1-8. The description is the application is to demolish an existing 600 square foot clubhouse, construct a new 2,392 square foot clubhouse, a 600 square foot storage building, enlarge the boat basin by 1,650 square feet with new floating catwalk and finger piers, conduct dredging adjacent to the bulkhead, and to reconstruct and increase the elevation by 18 inches of the 575 linear feet of bulkhead on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and surface waters. A natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and a site plan pursuant to 255-620 of the town code. The zoning district is WF, waterfront, AE flood zone, elevation 6, X flood zone, and secret class is unlisted. So Terry, would you like to?
I'm sorry, what is,
Let me go to the.
there is my agenda.
Know when the hearing was.
It
17.
was,
18.
well, I have July 25th.
It's
for
18.
all of this. Okay, I was a week off, okay.
All of them
So
were the
July
18th.
18th then, okay. All right, well, this was an application to, well, as read in already, to demolish a 600 square foot clubhouse, construct a 2-story, 2,392 square foot clubhouse, and a 600 storage building in the northern portion of the property. This is in a harbor protection overlay district. It's Gardner's Marina and site plan, and it was represented by Drew Bennett as the engineer for Gardner Marina. The enlargement included some of the docking area, the boat basin itself to improve the safety in the navigation, as to enlarge it on the northern side by 25 feet deep, I believe, by 166 feet long. Shows on the survey, which I believe is the survey dated, well, we have a site plan dated December 19th, 2022. This application was in front of the planning board, and they've completed their assessment and the secret determination, non-jurisdiction for secret, back on, I had a date for
June
that. I
1st.
believe June 8th, 2023.
June 1st, 2020.
Why am I a week off on all this? Okay, you sure?
I'm just looking at it.
Okay, all right, so June 1st, 2023. The planning board approved it and did the negative declaration for secret. They have a filed application to the DEC and the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. When you saw the photos that the chair had done for the hearing, you could see the deterioration in the walkways around the dock. And I know I visited the site also, and you could see like with the boats and the position of the boats in the marina, it clearly was obvious that it did need some expansion to be done for public safety in egress and ingress in and out of the marina itself out to the waters. So this enlargement, like I said, 25 feet deep on the northern side by 166 feet long. And you could see that area on the survey there in the red on the northern portion of it. There were questions that came up. It's about the current bulkhead some of the bulkhead is also going to be replaced, and the bulkhead is in deteriorated state. And the current bulkhead that's there is like wood with creosote covered, and it's going to be replaced with non-treated wood and increased in height by 18 inches, which is allowed by the DEC. The question came up from the vice chair about the western portion of that It comes right up to the marshland, and there's some phragmites in there. And they did testify that that was the reason actually to reduce the length of the enlargement that you see there at the 100, to 166 feet, to avoid that entire area. And one of the owners, I forget if it was Peter or Mark, one of them did testify that that was actually a newer portion of bulkhead, Peter. And was already, it's a vinyl bulkhead, and that even though it's leaning, it looks like it is stable and secure for safety. As far as the shed up in that corner, it's kind of off the screen almost, that's going to be the storage shed, and it encompasses 365 feet of additional clearing that's going to be done for that. And the client, the applicant, is going to revegetate a like amount in an area closer to the wetlands and the harbor to compensate for that additional clearing. What is on the property, as was testified by Brian Frank, is Ailanthus tree of heaven, an invasive tree, and that the planning department has no problem with that additional clearing, obvious reasons. It's an invasive species. As far now, some of the parking area that's going to be done on the southerly side, where they're going to eliminate a portion of the asphalt, and it will. Let's see.
They're going to reduce 7 feet of asphalt.
Yeah, they're going to eliminate 7 feet of asphalt and replace it with gravel driveway.
All the way around the
It's-
parking area.
And it's going to be brought into ADA compliance, and going based on the ADA compliance gets to the clubhouse, which is old and does have issues, structural issues. They're going to replace that with the 2-story clubhouse, and there's going to be some additional walks and done there in walkways in that area. And all of that is being done with the mind to the ADA compliance. It'll be, so the clubhouse, according to the planning department, is in the best location, is proposed in the best location in order to meet the ADA compliance, as well as other water-dependent uses, so that there is no wetland variance even required for that because of that. Yeah, the 7-foot band around the parking lot will reduce the asphalt. And he said the planning board had approved it, and it does meet the protection of wetlands and water quality. They did determine a negative secra determination on it. So I am looking to approve this project as it is proposed.
Thank you. Joe?
I'm looking to approve the project as proposed. Mary's explanation was pretty comprehensive. I'm just going to add for the record that that on the record, they agreed with all the conditions that were set forth in the environmental assessment form, Part 3, and negative declaration by Brian Frank dated June 1st, 2023, that are set forth on pages 4 and 5. Mitigation and conditions of approval summary. I think that should go into our decision. And other than that, I thought it was a very thoughtful and thoughtfully planned application, particularly because it's what they kept saying is it's a water dependent use, but they still made an effort to keep as far away from the wetlands as possible. So I think they did a good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a great example of an applicant working with the planners here and coming up with a good solution. I mean, when you look at it, it's a sizable project, so you get given pause, it's on the water. And, oh yeah, and I think that what we see happen here, especially our concern, I had concern, of course, for that wetland. It's very dramatic and it's quite impressive. And of course, they're right up against it. Somebody previously had run a roadway there. It would not be something that would happen today. I had my concerns. They were addressed at the meeting. I think that by taking that area, that intrusion back a certain number of feet to keep it further from the wetlands was an effort on the part of the applicant. I think that the two buildings make sense. They made sense to the planning department. I think that there's would have been the temptation to overly build a clubhouse here, but it does not going to be in terms of scale or magnitude overly done there. It seems as if it was well planned out. It certainly met the approvals of the planning department in terms of their conversations. And I think that, as was pointed out by Member McGivern, that whatever was suggested and by the planners here was agreed to by the applicant. And I think that was a very positive outcome for people working together towards a good solution here. This is a large project, and I think that the replacement of some of the materials that we'd rather not see in contact with the water with newer materials, that's positive. I think that they're going to get some navigational positivity for them. That's fine. I think that the parking area and coming up with this little bit of a drain buffer of 7 feet around that is a creative way to handle the hardened areas here. I think all of it was a positive to me, and it was just pointed out by Member McGivern was that the site construction protocol that we got from Drew Bennett was one that addressed several of these needs and several of the things we discussed. So for me, this is a satisfying application because although it's a massive project in terms, and it's dealing with water, it seems as if both the town and the applicant worked hand in hand and came up with a solution that we can all live with. So I'm looking to approve this application.
Thank you. I too, I mimic the Vice Chair's statement about the proper planning, and this is an example of proper planning in the town, working with the planning department and agencies to come up with a solution that is viable. There were as is the cutback of the slips in the beginning, the protocol. They're removing 2,400 yards of fill, which is not an insignificant amount of fill. It's quite a project, but Drew Bennett's protocol is pretty substantial, that the introduction of the turbidity curtain as well. So all in all, environmentally, and the condition of the existing sites is in need of approval. So I applaud the applicant for this application and do approve it.
Yeah, I'll make one more comment too. This was actually, I think, relatively quickly done too, because of that cooperation
Yeah.
between the planning board and the applicant. I believe it only started about a year ago, which is short.
Probably
in
seems
some of
like
these
forever to
projects,
you.
these huge projects.
Well, especially a waterfront project, these can take
Yeah.
time.
So just the planning board and the applicant did well.
Thank you, Mark. That concludes, oh no, we have to go back.
So
And Nina Silva. Next, we have Carlos. Oh, we get Denise back. Great. Next, we have Carlos Silva at 39 Bayview Avenue in Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-106-1-16. Size and location is 21,676 square feet at 39 Bayview Avenue, Hollymer, Section B, map number 316 in Amagansett. The description is to construct a 3,118 square foot two-story residence with 485 square foot of decking, 50 square feet of porch, roughly 110 square foot of swimming pool, full fencing driveway, buried LP tank and sanitary system on a parcel containing freshwater wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and any other relief necessary from the East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret glass is type 2. This is in Member McGivern's
Yeah.
territory, so.
So the hearing was held on July 18th, and Britton Bistrian presented for the applicant, and Tyler Borsak presented for the planning department. You may recall that this is an undeveloped piece of property in the Napeag area off Lazy Point Road. Half of it is wetlands, and if you got out of the car in that area, you were mauled by mosquitoes. For those of us who visited the property.
Or shield.
Um, All the existing improvements, which are none, are on the Saskis survey dated June 27th, 2022. The architectural plans by Amelia Suiza are stamped received by the zoning board on April 26, 2022. And the sanitary plans from Michael Mapes are dated January 6, 2021. The applicant designed all the improvements to meet the 100-foot wetland setbacks and the sanitary system to meet the 150-foot wetland setback. Therefore, they didn't require any variances. Although the residence is going to be 3,118 square feet, the footprint is only 1,694 square feet. And according to the planning department, the residence is in the most conforming location regarding the wetlands setbacks. With respect to the sanitary system, they have a regrading proposal in order to permit the tank to meet the 2-foot separation to groundwater needed. The parcel's located in an AE 10 flood zone, which has resulted in the first floor having to be 12 feet, elevated 12 feet to be FEMA compliant. The planning department was generally satisfied with the environmental protections provided by the application. And the applicant accepted the recommended scenic easement sketch dated May 22nd, 2023, which means that 50% of the lot is going to be covered by a scenic easement. So with respect to the natural resources, special permit, preservation of natural resources, section D, are there alternative uses of the property? I think the applicant did the best they could, given the constraints of the property, and I think it's significant that they're setting aside 50% of it to be covered by a scenic easement. Alternative designs, are there alternative designs entailing smaller buildings or structures, reduced yard or other setbacks, et cetera? As I pointed out, I think the footprint is reasonably small. The pool is reasonably small. And as the planning department pointed out, the residence itself was in the most conforming location vis-a-vis the wetland setbacks. At the hearing, they noted that they accepted all the recommended project conditions that were outlined in the technical assessment, technical analysis memorandum dated May 22nd, 2023. So I'm looking to approve this application.
Thank you. Ed? Thank you. Thank you, Joan. Yeah, you've really covered a lot of what I would have wanted to say, but I'll say some of it anyway. I think it's a good project in the sense that we are getting a 50% of the property in an easement. There was a suggestion from the building department that the 75-foot from wetlands be established as a buffer rather than the 50-foot that was proposed. They agreed to that at the hearing, so that we get that as a little bit more protection. I think it's a heavily wooded lot, and I think we had some reaction. We did have a letter from a neighbor about that. Some of that letter was about the urban renewal conditions in that area, which didn't really apply exactly to what we were doing here, but they were good observations. But I think that we have a reasonable sized house. We have no variances. They were moved back. The house was moved back as far as, to the most conforming location, but so is the septic system. The septic system was pulled back so that we're looking for nothing there. We are an NRSP. This is a beautiful lot, and it's my natural inclination to say, wouldn't it be great if it could have stayed a wooded lot? But it is a building lot, and given the fact that it is a building lot, I think that the best possible protection for it is probably been put forward. 50% variance, and also, 50% easement on the property, and I think the 75 foot from the wetlands as a
Yeah.
buffer. So, that has to be FEMA compliant, puts all of those houses down there on Bayview in the awkward position of being very high off of the ground, but all of them at that 12-foot number require that. So I think that this is another case where whatever was recommended seemed to have been responded to, and we're not being asked to approve variances, particularly relative to the wetland. So I'm looking to approve this application.
Thank you. Denise?
I agree with my board members. I think the whole project is really being very environmentally sensitive to the constraints of the property and is in keeping with the preservation of natural resources. I also found it very impressive that the proposed clearing line is located 50 feet from the wetlands, which is the legal limit. However, the planning department recommended 75-foot buffer to the wetlands, and the applicant has agreed to that. So I think that's, pretty incredible to see that they're conscious of the benefits to protecting the natural features. The project meets FEMA. The residence is in the most conforming location, and for all these reasons, I am approving this natural resource special permit.
Thank you, Sarah.
You already said everything, but yes, 3,100 18-foot house, 110-foot swimming pool. So I think in agreement with all my fellow board members, this was well thought out and took into consideration very strongly the constraints of this property. And the only comment on the sanitary, it is in the most conforming location. There will be some grading required at the tank meets the 2-foot separation of the groundwater. The leaching pools do not, but that has been something that we have approved regardless. I do think this meets the preservation of natural resources. Alternative reasonable uses of the property are determined not to exist in consideration that everything was contained. The house is not overly large, and I too am approving this application.
Thank you. I agree fully as well. I think this is an example of designing within the constraints of a property, both from an area zoning, traditional zoning point, as well as the NRSP, and I too will vote to approve it. Next, we have Lola Signum at 86 Devon Road, Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-176-6-28. The size and location is 14,000 square foot at 86 Devon Road, Beach Hampton, Section 1, map number 1203 in Amagansett. The description is to allow an existing 768 square foot pool deck, a 14 square foot pool equipment to remain on a parcel within side yard setbacks, and allow an outdoor shower, mesh fencing, and stone patio with stone pathway to remain on a parcel within 100 foot of freshwater wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, and 5 variances are required. Variances from 255-430 of 87 feet, 52 feet, and 36 feet are required to allow the existing fence 13 feet, outdoor shower 48 feet, and stone patio with stone pathway 64 feet from wetlands where 100 foot is required. Variances of 1 foot 4 foot 4.6 from 255-1110 side yard setbacks are required to allow an existing pool deck 18.6 feet and existing pool equipment 15.4 feet from the side yard property line where 20 foot is required and any other relief necessary from East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is B residence 8E flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. Joe?
Yes, this application was heard July 18th. John Tarbett presented for the applicant and Tyler Borsak presented for the planning department. I'll deal with the existing pool deck and existing pool equipment first. The building application, as was pointed out in the TAM, clearly shows, well, let me back up a little bit. This property, there was the house, and next to it was a pool surrounded by a sort of wooden deck and wooden fence all around the pool. The 1981 building permit clearly shows the deck where it was going to be located at 20 feet. So the fact that they need 1.4 inch variance, 1.4 foot variance, I would chalk up to builder error, and I would allow it. Curiously, the building permit didn't really indicate, the application for the building permit didn't indicate where the pool equipment was going to go. But obviously they got CO'd for that. So maybe they just didn't pay attention to where existing pool equipment
No,
went
I
at
think
the
there was a
time.
time when those things weren't required to be on the survey. I think, even even generators were not required to be
Right.
on a survey back then. So
Okay.
it's hard to tell, but
It's hard to tell,
Before,
but so I'm,
before 81.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
in 81 for sure.
yeah, so
I
I'm
think.
looking to approve their request for the variance for the existing pool equipment. With respect to the existing fence, I need a little help because it wasn't clear whether it was the neighbor's fence or not. Bless
God
you.
bless you.
So I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on that.
Well, the wire fence, it says the stockade
Well, it
fence
looks
with the
like it
neighbors
goes
over
over
The
here.
stockade fence with the wire fence is
The wire
theirs.
fence continues in the back here. That's
Oh.
where the
And the
major-
wire fence.
The building department, in my knowledge, would not approve a pool enclosure fence that's off the property line or a neighbor's property line. So you can't, even if the
What?
neighbor had a fence on the property line, your pool enclosure fence still needs to be installed next to it, if that's
Next
the
to
way.
it.
Yeah,
Property.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the way the building department looks
Well,
at it,
wait, the pool is,
which I agree with, by the way.
the pool already has a fence. I mean,
It
the
does.
pool
That's
is
what we're-
already
that's what we're
totally
discussing.
enclosed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it already does.
Yeah, so this other fence, I don't know where it
87
came
foot
from. I don't
variance.
think that was ever a pool enclosure
Yeah.
fence.
Right, so I was
It's
just,
fencing the
huge
property. It's all the
variance.
way back on the back property line.
And that's considered the mesh fencing?
yes,
Well,
Well,
there's a
it's the
stockade
mesh-
fence too. There's two fences.
yeah, but that was the neighbors. Anyway,
Right. I don't know that it shows it.
I
Looks like
was
it's
looking
partially
to
on there.
deny the mesh fence because I didn't really even understand the purpose of it, except maybe to keep deer out. With respect to the outdoor shower, the planning department recommended that they put a dry well in. So although it's a substantial variance, I think I'm okay with that. I mean, people are going to take showers in or outside of the house, so if it's got a dry well, I think it'll protect the wetlands. And the stone patio and stone pathway, according to the TAM, the applicant offered to remove the stone patio. So that was taken off the table. That's all I really have to say about this application.
Right, Ed?
Which portion are you going to approve?
Everything but the fence.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the stone patio was taken off the table, so.
Right.
Yeah, I think you've covered it already, Joan. I'll make the same comments. Go ahead.
The survey says it's going to be removed.
Yeah, the stone patio is coming off. They're going to put a dry well under the shower. Those are both two improvements. I do think we classically hear the term builder's error. This seems as if it is very likely a builder's error. 1.6 feet, somebody ran this in here. They didn't do a very good job. It doesn't surprise me. But either way, it's become come in front of us to looking for a 1.4 foot variance.
Oh, I know what I left out. I'm sorry, I left out, John Tarbett pointed out that although it might be a builder's error, back then, the building permit, this was before the building permit required stakeouts of pools that would have
Yes.
avoided the problem.
Mhm.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I agree. That's true.
And that ties into the idea that this, it's all basically been there roughly for 40 years. So a lot of this goes back and it's got a long history of being in that spot on the property. I don't really go over everything you've said. I think that the fence has to be moved. The fence is down, is asking for massive variances, and it's well back beyond the developed area on the property here, so that can be moved. I won't approve the fence, but I'm willing to approve the rest of the application. I think that the builder's area is believable to me. The stone patio is being removed. The drywall is going in. I can approve this application, extend, deny the fence.
Thank you.
I actually agree with everyone. The only part of the application I was going to deny is the variance for the mesh fencing, for the reasons stated. I kind of think the outdoor shower is a kind of substantial, but they are putting in a dry well. I think I'll be okay with that. And the stone patio and the stone pathway is getting removed. I think I've been consistent with that in the past too.
Thank you.
So I'm just denying the fence.
Carrie?
Okay, I think I'm in the same ballpark with everyone. The mesh fence, I'm still concerned about the stockade fence too. I don't see where it shows it's all off this applicant's property. So, and it's not clear on the survey. I guess they're talking about the 13 foot from the wetlands for that. It's not clear on the survey.
It's not clear on the survey.
It's not staged, so actually both fences look like they meet at that location. So any fencing that is there and 13 feet from the wetlands, I'm denying. The outdoor shower, even though it is 52-foot variance, I will approve that conditioned, as everyone else has already said, the addition of a dry well. The stone patio, the survey shows that it is going to be removed, so I do want it noted, though, in the determination that, that variance is not being granted. And the pool deck and pool equipment, I am approving that, since it was done way back in 1981. That's substantial.
Thank you. I agree. I have nothing else to add on this one. Thank you. All right, I think that concludes us. Oh, no, we have, we do have resolutions, and I think we have minutes of approval, August 1st.
I don't have them on my,
I did not.
Blame me for
oh
everything.
dear,
Terry, you want to take care of the
I
minutes?
don't remember these at all.
Oh, here. That's a big help.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals minutes for August 1st, 2023.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur. I didn't realize I had to prepare for Hyman and Bauer. I just don't remember them right now.
Well, Bauer,
yeah.
we should have approved already. It was,
Yeah, we discussed it,
we
didn't we?
discussed it, it was approved.
I actually thought we already did it. I thought it.
I thought we did, but I
know.
think we do it again. I think,
Oh, wait, this is a resolution.
These are the
Which is
resolutions
right-
for
well,
Beth-
Bauer was the
Bauer.
one that had the little cottage and the brick patio. Was that Bauer?
I think we
And-
unanimously,
Yeah.
It was a
approved,
unanimous
it's
approval on
Yeah.
Bauer.
Yeah.
So I think you're okay to make a motion.
Okay, so I'm Stephanie Bauer, 65 Wyandanch Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-176-06-02. I make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
concur.
Concur.
I
Um,
concur. Denise, did you concur?
I concurred.
We're all good. Okay, so
And Hyman, I didn't read. I'm
That was
afraid.
I believe that was unanimous as well. It was for, let me think.
Counselor, can you help?
Maybe we go back to having the decision in hand the night of the
Yes, I would
hearing.
love that, to have the resolution.
yeah, council, just a note that the zoning board, we used to have what the decision, a copy of the decision in hand. so we can-
Available,
we
right.
can,
Okay.
if we needed to, it'd just be helpful if we could have that in the future.
Do it
Were
on-
they-
It was
that
I know it was a unanimous.
It was
approval.
unanimous. I mean, I think it was non-controversial. I'm just
We can
drawing
make
a
a motion
blank.
to approve it. It was approved by everybody.
I
Okay.
believe so.
Let's make a motion.
So in the matter, in the matter of Alan Hyman, 37 Beach Avenue, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-175-3-14.1, I make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Unison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals meeting work session for August 8th, 2023 at 8:40 PM.
Second.
Concur.
And we have 1 second. You want to concur?
I concur.
Okay, I
Who
concur.
seconded?
Thank you.
I don't know.
Joan is second.